Hey everyone, my name is Nigel Bajos, and today I'm going to be doing a review of a variable ND filter by Tyfoto. Now the people at Tyfoto were nice enough to send me this variable ND in for review, but even though this was sent to me, I'm not required to say anything nice about it. This is going to be a completely unbiased review. So if you're not familiar with what a variable ND filter does, basically when you're out in really bright conditions, if you try to expose, there's only really two ways to expose your image. You could either up your shutter speed, and what that's going to do is it's going to cause some really unnatural motion blur. Typically you want to keep your shutter speed at about 1/50th of a second if you're shooting 24p. It's called the 180 degree rule. And the other way to expose your image is to stop your aperture down a lot. And what that does is it gets rid of all of the shallow depth of field that you could get if you have a really wide aperture lens. So those are really the only two options that you have to expose your image. What a variable ND filter does is it acts like a set of sunglasses to go in front of your lens, and that way you can keep your aperture nice and wide and still keep your shutter speed at 1/50th of a second. The only problem that I found with cheaper ND filters is that once you put the ND filter over there, you lose sharpness and there's really bad color cast. So I'm going to be doing some tests with this Tyfoto variable ND and see if it is a good alternative to the more expensive variable NDs. This variable ND filter will run you about 50 bucks. But that's still a really good deal considering the cheapest variable ND by Tiffin is about $100. And if you go to the Stingray or the Heliopan filters, they're gonna be a lot more than that. So 50 bucks is actually, I think it hits the sweet spot as far as like quality and price point. Now I'm gonna be testing this Tyfoto against the very popular, super cheap neutral density filter by Fotka. So we're gonna see how much better this $50 variable ND filter is compared to a really cheap like $17 Fotka variable ND. The three things that I'm going to be testing are, first of all, the sharpness. Now that's one thing that obviously the sharpness is going to decrease a bit because you are putting something in front of your lenses. They're not going to be as sharp as without a variable ND in front of it. So that's the first thing I'm going to see is just how much this variable ND is going to soften your image. The second thing is color cast, and that's another thing that variable NDs are notorious for, is for making a really weird color cast. Some variable NDs have like a green tint to them, some have a more magenta or yellow tint. So I'm going to test that, and the last test is kind of a color cast test as well, but a lot of the times when you're using a lot of ND to block out the sun, when you're filming things, the color gets so bad that it actually makes the blacks not black anymore. They look like a muddy brown. So I wanted to see if having a lot of ND in front of my lens is going to create a weird brown color cast to my blacks and mess up my blacks that way. So those are the three tests that we're going to do. And I went out to Larch Mountain, which is one of my favorite places to go, to film some sharpness tests and some color tests. So let's get right into it. All right, in this shot, this is the Sigma 16mm at f1.4, and I bumped the shutter speed up a bunch to expose properly. And next we're gonna go to the exact same shot with the Tyfoto filter on it. So this is the same shot with the Tyfoto filter on it, and this is at minimum ND. And this is the shot with no ND filter on it, punched in at 150%. And again, at 150%, this is the shot with the minimum ND of the Tyfoto filter on it. And honestly, this looks pretty good. There hasn't really been a very significant decrease in sharpness. And if we look at them side by side, on the left, you'll see the bare lens. On the right, you'll see the Tyfoto. There is a little bit of a color shift and maybe a slight degradation in sharpness, but honestly, not that much. And then as you can see with medium and maximum ND, the sharpness continues to decrease ever so slightly and the color shifts as well, but honestly, it's not that bad. That's something that you can expect from most variable ND filters, is for them to, put a yellowish or a warmish color cast onto your footage. But honestly, that's not a very hard thing to correct in post, and the similarity between the bare lens and the filter lens is very close, and I wouldn't say that this filter is that bad in either regard as far as sharpness or color cast. All right, so now I'm going to test the Tyfoto against the Fotka filter. So this is the Tyfoto, and this is the Fotka. As you can see, there's a very slight change in color. And if we look again, this is the Tyfoto, and this is the Fotka. So it's a very slight difference, but the Fotka definitely has a slightly more yellow color cast to the footage than the Tyfoto does. And if we look at them here side by side, you can see that there is an ever so slight advantage to the Tyfoto on the left with a slightly sharper image. They're honestly pretty similar when it comes to color cast, but the Tyfoto on the left is slightly sharper than the Fotka on the right. So in this test, I just wanted to see how the blacks reacted when I had a lot of ND in front of it. So this is just my 16mm bare with no filter in front of it, and my buddy Kyle wearing an all black shirt. And in this shot, this is the Tyfoto at maximum ND. As you can see on the right lower hand and left upper hand corners, there is some vignetting, but that is to be expected when you're using that much ND. And then if we go to the Fotka, as you can see, the color is definitely different than the Tyfoto. The blacks aren't as black, and there's definitely more of like a green tint. And again, there is that vignetting on the sides. But yeah, overall, I am really impressed with this Tyfoto variable ND filter. One thing that I really like about this is that it actually has hard stops. So when you go to the maximum ND, it's going to hard stop, and then at the minimum, it's going to stop again. So you're not going to get any of those weird X patterns that you get with like the Fotka. It's one thing that I absolutely hate about the Fotka is that when you turn it just a little bit too much, you get that weird X pattern in your shot. And even though this does give you a little bit of vignetting, it's definitely not as bad as the Fotka. And again, the quality that you're getting out of this is going to be way better than the Fotka variable ND. So I would say that if you are looking for a variable ND filter and you don't want to get a super cheap one like the Fotka, but you also don't want to spend a minimum of $100 for the Tiffin, then this Tyfoto is definitely for you. I think that this is a really cool company. They have a lot of really cool stuff on their Instagram page. They're based out of California. And yeah, I think this is the new best variable ND filter for 2018. This is definitely going to be the one that I'm going to be using from now on. Again, it's like super robust and the quality is there. So if you guys enjoyed this review, it'd be great if you hit the like button and be sure to subscribe to my channel for more content. I'm going to have the links to Tyfoto's website as well as their Instagram account, so definitely go check those out. But until next time, I will see you all later. Bye. So I almost forgot one thing. The good people over at Tyfoto are going to be giving my viewers a discount. So if you want to pick up one of these rad variable ND filters, be sure to click the link in the description below and use the coupon code NIGEL at checkout and you'll get 15% off. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Later.